Who doesn't like bacon? So we have 4 pounds of bacon here, and we're going to freeze dry the bacon, but in a way that's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to take 3 pounds of bacon and we're going to render it in the oven, and then we're going to take 1 pound of bacon and fry it up in a pan, and we're going to compare the two methods. So each of these is supposed to be 16 ounces of bacon, but do you really get 16 ounces of bacon? So we got 15.4 ounces out of this package. This one is 15. Well, this is 14.9. Oh, this one is 16.9, so actually we got a little bit extra bacon on that one. I guess it makes up for the ones that we got shorted on. Wow, and this one is 17.8. So, looks like we did, on an average, we did pretty good. I also find it interesting on the thickness of the bacon. If you take a look at this bacon, it's really thinly sliced, where this bacon is really thick sliced. So there's quite a, I know it's probably different in manufacturers, but this bacon's really thick. What we're going to do is a little bit different. We're going to render the fat on the bacon in the oven, and rendering takes place basically between 130 and 140 degrees. Now my oven will only go down to 145 degrees, and 145 degrees is technically the temperature when things start to cook. So what we're going to do, we're just going to take this bacon and we're going to hang it over the rack. In the past I've tried hanging the bacon on a single bar, but what ends up happening is that bacon has a tendency to stick together and becomes just a thicker piece of bacon where the fat inside can't get rendered. So I've noticed it's actually best to straddle to the racks and have it hang that way. That way the air, the warm air can get in between the bacon and render the fat on the inside a lot better. All my bacon is hanging from the rack, and underneath it I have a pan to catch all the drips. So I'm going ahead and set this to 145 degrees. That's the lowest it'll go, and we're going to let this run for 4 to 6 hours until the bacon is fully rendered. This bacon has been rendering for about 5 hours, and you'll notice that the fat has almost become translucent. And the thinner bacon, the thinner sliced bacon, is kind of hard, where the thicker sliced bacon is still kind of pliable. So we're done with the rendering phase of this. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to crank this up to 300 degrees, and that's going to force a lot of the remaining fat in the bacon to be forced out, and this kind of cream color fat is going to darken quite a bit. So we're going to leave the bacon in there. Right now it's 145 degrees. So we're just going to hit 300 degrees, and we're just going to let that come up to temperature till it hits 300, and then we're going to turn the oven off. Now these 2 rows is the first pound we weighed. This is the second pound of bacon we weighed, and this is the third pound of bacon we weighed, and this bacon had the much thicker slices. This bacon has been in here for about 15 minutes, and prior to the end of that, you could just see that the bacon was just dripping real heavy. I mean, there's just drips everywhere coming off the bacon. More so on the bacon that's really fat than the bacon that's sliced thin. So now that you can see that the bacon has stopped dripping, that's pretty much an indication that a lot of the free fat that was in the bacon has left the bacon because all the fat was rendered. And so we're going to take this out. Now if you take a look at this bacon, it's kind of in this frozen state of an upside down U. And if we try to lay this out, it may very well snap on us, but that's okay. So we're going to take this bacon out. We're going to lay it on some paper towels. Now before you take the bacon off the rack, you want to remove this oil, because we don't want any of the dry bacon falling back into the pool of oil here. These are my 3 piles of bacon, package number 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to go ahead and weigh those and see how much weight we lost from rendering them. Now this pile right here was 15.4 ounces, so I'll need to change this from grams to ounces. Okay, and we have 5.25 ounces now. So this pile of bacon lost 10 ounces in the rendering process. Now this pile was 14.9 ounces. And it's now 4.4 ounces. So this bacon also lost almost exactly 10 ounces of fat. And the last pile of bacon, the thicker cut bacon, that was originally 16.9 ounces. It's now 5.6 ounces. This bacon lost 11.2 ounces of fat. Now just to give you a comparison, we're going to get a pound of bacon and fry it up in a frying pan and cook it and render it that way to let you see the difference between rendering in an oven and cooking bacon and rendering the fat in a fry pan. We're going to take this pound of bacon, which is 16.65 pounds, and we're going to go ahead and fry it up. That's a lot of oil, so I'm going to go ahead and drain this bacon and put it back in the fry pan. So I think this bacon almost had more oil than the other 3 pounds I did. And that's just the luck of the draw on how much fat your bacon's going to have. Okay, this bacon is pretty fully cooked. So now we're going to drain the grease out of it. The bacon we originally cooked in the fry pan was 16.56 ounces, and now it is 14.75 ounces. The bacon we cooked in the fry pan lost 71% of its fat weight in the pan itself, where these 3 pounds of bacon that we did in the oven on average lost 68% of its fat weight in the oven. And so you may want to think, well, what's the difference between doing the bacon in the pan versus the bacon in the oven? And it kind of comes down to moisture content. this bacon is going to have a far less amount of moisture than this bacon, and that's going to be important when it comes time to freeze dry. I lined the harvest ripe trays with 2 paper towel sheets, and I recorded the weight at 739 grams. So we're going to go ahead and put our bacon into this tray, and we're going to try to separate it as much as possible. Now, one of the problems with having the bacon in the fry pan, it's a little bit more like a ribbon instead of laying flat, but it'll still work out. Here are the 4 trays of bacon, and I find it kind of interesting that these 3 trays of bacon look like they have more bacon than the last tray. This is the bacon that was in the frying pan, but these 3 were in the oven, but they appear to have more bacon by area than that one does. In fact, what's interesting is that this package of bacon was 16.6 pounds. It was actually more than a pound of bacon. And this one was 15.4, this was 14.9 and 16.9. Anyway, we're going to throw these into the freezer and pre-freeze them. And I have on here the weight, the total weight, including the pan, paper towels, and the bacon. So what we're looking at is how much weight is going to be lost out of these trays. Now, I have a sneaky suspicion from the research I've done, there's not going to be a lot of weight when it comes to water. With these 3 trays, I'm hypothesizing that most of the water is already gone. And so the question is, can you really freeze dry bacon if you don't have any water in it? But we're going to find out. So we're going to weigh this before and after, and we're going to see and account for the fat in the water to see if bacon can truly be freeze dried. The first thing I noticed when doing this bacon video, and why I think bacon has very little moisture, is take a look at the ice ring. There's almost no ice ring in the chamber. The chamber's almost empty. Plus the fact that it only took 10 hours to run this cycle before it went into extra dry time. This is the first tray of bacon. The original weight on it is 877 grams, and down here it's 874 grams. So there's a discrepancy of 3 grams. That could be moisture, and most likely it is moisture because most of the fat has probably gone into the paper towel. This is tray number 2. It was 852 grams, and it's coming up at 850 grams for a difference of 2 grams. Like again, probably 2 grams worth of water. This is tray number 3, 906 grams. It's coming up at 902 grams, so 4 grams is missing. And tray number 4 was 874 grams. And this is the bacon that we did in the fry pan. Now there's quite a discrepancy on this one. So this is missing 15 grams. So these 3 trays were done in an oven, where I think most of the moisture was taken out. This tray right here was done in a fry pan. And I think it was a little bit harder for the moisture to leave the fry pan than it was for the oven. So now we have all this beautiful bacon that's ready for packaging. Now, the only thing that can really make bacon go bad is for the bacon to go rancid. There are 3 things that will cause food to go rancid. And that's basically when fat and oils are broken down into fatty acids. That is oxygen, light, and temperature. Now we can control oxygen with oxygen absorbers and with vacuum packing. We can control light if food is put into a Mylar bag. However, if food is put into a glass jar, well then light has a problem with that. Temperature is the third. And we can control temperature on where we keep our food storage. Now, you've seen my videos and you know how I feel about glass. I'm not a big advocate of putting freeze-dried food into glass because it only takes one slip, one fall, and the glass will shatter and has a good chance of contaminating all your freeze-dried food. But glass does have a place when it comes to bacon, and it has an advantage over bags. So the question you need to ask yourself if you're going to freeze-dry your bacon is, what do you want your bacon for? Do you want your bacon to be a nice piece of meat that's going to be next to some sunny side up eggs, or next to some waffles and pancakes? Or do you just want to have it all crushed up and put on your potatoes? So what do you want the bacon for? So if you don't mind your bacon in little teeny pieces, well, then go ahead and put it in the Mylar bag. If you want your bacon to be in nice big slices, then perhaps you need to put it into a jar. So we're going to take a look at putting bacon into jars and putting bacon into bags. I was able to get the contents of tray number 1 into a 1-quart jar. And tray number 1 was 1 package of bacon, which was just shy of 16 ounces. It was actually 15.4 ounces. But for all intents and purpose, 1 package was able to fit inside here. So we're going to go ahead and put the lid and the ring on, just like you're going to do if you're going to can it. We're going to leave that lid on, the ring on a little bit loose. Now, with a freeze dryer, it's easy to take care of the first problem with rancidity, or things going rancid, and that's to remove the air. We're going to put this in our freeze dryer, and we're going to remove all the air out of this bottle. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and put an oxygen absorber in there, and maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea in case over time your lid were to leak or to fail. But for this demonstration purpose, we're not going to put an oxygen absorber until this is ready to go on the shelf. We have the freeze dryer here, and the shelf has been removed. The power cord for the shelf is just tucked in the back, and the gasket is in place. And we're just going to put the bacon in the jar in there. At the Harvest Right screen, we're going to hit the leaf, and that'll bring up the function test. Now in this case, we just want to have the vacuum running, so we're going to hit the vacuum. Now, at my altitude, I've calculated that if I run my vacuum for 8 minutes, that will pretty much take out any of the air that's going to be in a 1-quart jar. Now, elevation has a lot to do with this, so you might have to test how much time you may need at your elevation to remove the vacuum totally from a 1-quart jar. Now, the smaller the container, the less time you'll need. But I will show you how you can determine if the air has been evacuated from a jar. Take out the bottle. Now, with tray number 2, we're going to put tray number 2 into a standard Mylar bag. And that's how easy that is. Now, to do this was a lot more difficult because I had to slide all the pieces of the bacon in the different cracks and crevices. So it took a little while to put the bacon into the glass. This, with the bag, it just slid right in. Now, for demonstration purposes for the Mylar bag, we're not going to try to burp any of the air out of this bag because this is going to be vacuum sealed. We're just going to go along the top like normal. And we're just going to put one sill across the top. Just like this. And then we're going to find the intersecting points between the two sills. And just where that little corner is, we're just going to snip off just a bit of the corner that will allow the air to escape out of the bag. And this bag and this jar are both going to go into the freeze dryer. When it comes to vacuum packing Mylar bags with bacon, that's a lot easier. We're going to go to the leaf, we're going to hit the vacuum, and because we have less room to void, or less area to void out of the bag, we only need to run this for 2 minutes. Give it 2 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and set that, and of course that collapses all the air out and gives us a good package. So there we go, 1 pound of bacon. Then we're just going to go and seal that corner on the bag just like so, and you have vacuum packed bacon. And we have the jar that's been vacuum packed. So it comes back to the question of what do you want from your bacon? Do you want your bacon looking like this, or do you want your bacon looking more something in bits and pieces? So with that said, let's take a look at the bacon in the pouch. Now, the vacuum forces basically forced most of the air out of here. So we're going to see what the bacon looks like after it's been vacuum packed. Okay, so this is the bacon, and you can see it's no longer in those nice big pieces, but still, I mean, it's not bacon bits, but it still has some form to it. All right. Now let's take a look at the bacon in the jar. Now you can already see that the bacon in the jar retained itself. Now, and this is one of the problems with maybe bacon in the jar. It's going to have a big traffic jam in there, but if you're careful enough, you can probably get most of the bacon out in the pieces that they went into. There we go. So with that being said, which bacon do you want? Jar bacon or bag bacon? Now I know what you're saying. I know what you're going to ask. How do I know how much of a vacuum was in this jar? Good question. To just give you an idea, so this jar was in the freeze dryer for 8 minutes. And the time is not the issue, it's going to be the millitorr. But in 8 minutes, I was able to bring this down to 755 millitorr. So we're going to see how much of a complete vacuum, or what percentage of a complete vacuum I was able to generate. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get a butter knife. And once this end is submerged in the water, I'm going to put a butter knife right behind the sill and slowly break it. So that is fairly successful, able to almost void all the air out of this jar. So if you were to pack this with bacon, put an oxygen absorber in just for insurance purposes, you can get rid of the oxygen that can lead to your bacon going rancid. The only other thing you need to do is block the sunlight and keep it cool. So placing the bacon, whether in a bag or in a jar, will help remove the oxygen. The second problem you have to deal with is going to be the light. Now, just for the fact that a glass jar is clear is going to be a problem with light exposure, primarily UV light exposure. The benefits of a Mylar bag is that no light can get through a Mylar bag. So where the jar has a benefit with vacuum, the bag has a benefit with the light. But there is a couple of things you can do if you're going to be putting bacon in a jar. Well, one idea would be to paint a jar. Well, that can be kind of difficult and time consuming. And you know, if you really had to, you could put a little bit of a window on the jar if you wanted to see into the jar. Maybe a more simpler solution would be to wrap a jar with construction paper. But I found the easiest way to bar light from going into a jar would be with a paper bag. That will bar light from going into a jar. The last thing we're going to talk about is reconstituting your bacon. Now, the question I ask you once again is, how do you like your bacon? I'm kind of the middle of the road kind of guy. I don't like my bacon so crispy that if I tried to cut it, it's going to shatter. But I don't like my bacon chewy. I like it kind of halfway. So, the best way I've found in reconstituting bacon is with a spray bottle. You don't want to soak your bacon because bacon has a lot of flavor and salt. If you submerge your bacon in water, the water is going to carry away some of your bacon and you're just going to be left with a chewy dog treat. But just give it a little bit of spray and let it sit for a minute or two. So this is our bacon. It's no longer crispy to the point it shatters, but it's a little bit softer.